over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff across those 5 sports betting markets, plus Major League Baseball, the NBA, a lot of stuff coming your way for NASCAR this weekend, UFC this weekend. We had a good tennis preview from Big Ten Watto for the Paris Masters. We'll have some soccer previews later on in the week to go along with some esports stuff as well for the League of Legends World Championships. So plenty of stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com. Check out our Bang the Book YouTube page. And, of course, if you miss any editions of Bang the Book Radio, all archived over there at the website, and you can find them wherever it is you get your podcast content. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. 2 guests on the program here today. We start things off with our chilly leadoff hitter. That is Brian Blessing of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. Brian, how's it going today, man?
Yeah, man, you nailed that. It's 41 as we speak, and I do my stuff out on the patio in the shade, so it's probably about 30, and which, you know, I mean, a guy that came here from Buffalo you think would be great, but I am such a baby now. I am so bundled up. I mean, you would think I'm climbing the Himalayas.
Well, I'm sure things will warm up for you, and I saw that Denver getting pelted with snow again. A lot of places dealing with snow here already.
Yeah, that's their problem.
Yeah, right. That'll be coming my way on Saturday where we get our first snowflakes of the year. So definitely not looking forward to that. But I am looking forward to Week 9, mostly because I went 0-5 in the Super Contest and the Circa Million in Week 8. So looking forward to turning the page here and hopefully getting some better games. But as far as Week 8 goes, Brian, as we kind of put that to rest a little bit, what were some of your takeaways from this past weekend?
Oh, the Bears field goal kicking, those woes continue. Denver playing not to lose, which, sounds like Monday morning quarterbacking. But, I know Flacco's not Brady, but we're watching the game. In fact, I was standing there watching it with Matt Humans, and it was 3rd and 5, and they're like at the 45 coming in, 3rd and 5. And I said, they're going to run it into the pile and burn a time. They're worried about the timeouts. Get the first down and the game's over. I know Flacco's not Brady. Win the game. And, of course, they punt, personal foul on a tackle, kick, lose. I don't know. Coaches, the way they manage these games, absolutely infuriating to me. These guys work 18-hour days, but when they're on the sidelines, they can't look 15 seconds into the future. The way these games are managed is insanity. I mean, we can whine about the refs all we want. The coaches are tried and true.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I mean, so many of these guys are just playing not to lose. And, I mean, the last thing you want to do in 2019 is put it in the hands, or I guess put it on the foot of an NFL kicker. And, I mean, we see it in college football, too, where these guys just pack it away, salt the clock, don't go for a touchdown. Kicker shanks one, and everyone, blames the kicker and wonders how that could happen. Play to win the damn game instead of playing not to lose the game.
Well, I mean, honestly, the Bills, I'd rather they get rolled the way they got rolled. But that game, one play, the whole game decided. It's before the half. They're up 7-3. Eagles can't get a first down. And the Bills have a chance to go down the field, get a field goal, and go up 10-3 at the half. 3rd and 2 from your own 20. And they call a designed running play for Josh Allen. Well, yeah, I get it. Josh Allen can run. His dangers when he scrambles and, but to call a designed running play on 3rd and 2 and, linebacker hits him, he fumbles the football. They gift wrap them 8 points. Eagles get the ball out of the half, go down the field and score. And the Bills were deflated, and the first time their defense let up some big plays. But one play, the whole game was decided. And you're like, of all the things you could call, that's the call you had. Give it to Gore, give it Singletary. Why are you making your quarterback? I mean, the quarterback running a sweep. It's one thing when he's scrambling and lays down and gives up himself, but when you're exposing him to linebackers, you're asking for trouble. It's dumb.
Yeah, and the Buccaneers too. I mean, they got a 4th and 1. They're kind of driving down the field. They're trying to put themselves in a position to win the game. And I get it. Jameis Winston's a turnover machine, and I understand maybe not having a whole lot of trust in him. But you hand it off to Peyton Barber on 4th and 1.
Oh,
Jameis Winston he's supposed to be your franchise player, right? I mean, That if the ball can't be in his hands on 4th and 1, trailing by 4, you need a touchdown. You don't just need to get in a field goal range. You need 6 points. And Jameis can't have the ball in his hands. Well, he's not your guy then. And maybe that's a sign of that. But man, I don't get it. I don't get why the Bears are still in love with Mitch Trubisky when Chase Daniel has a better chance of moving that team up and down the field. And they even moved the ball with Trubisky, but then completely stalled in the red zone. I'll tell you what, man. I don't mind if I lose on a bad handicap, like getting my brain caved in with Carolina and San Francisco.
It's
I'm
easier.
okay with that.
Yeah, it's easier to
so
take
much
that.
Easier. But there are so many instances where, Chicago, right side, complete right side. Matt Nagy is just a dumbass and an imbecile. Tampa Bay was probably the right side. God damn it, it's frustrating.
Tampa Bay was the right side. In the Chicago thing, it's easy to say, an NFL kicker, you miss a 39-yarder. But literally, they had the defense running for their lives, and they were gassed and out of breath. Run a few more plays and get it a little closer. Wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, the wind happens to swirl there. Hello? Make it, and you're already a franchise that's scarred by missed kicks at the end of the game. Make it as easy as you can. You shake your head, man.
And Chicago attempted 5 field goals from 22 yards or closer. For God's sake, get in the damn end zone. Call better plays in the red. I get it. Mitch Trubisky's not very good, but if you're Matt Nagy and you're supposed to be this brilliant offensive mind, which is why Chicago hired you, because they already had the really good defense, and you can't get into the end zone, well, why are you calling play? Why are you an NFL head coach?
Hey, bud, listen, the Cleveland game, the Patriots were barely there. That game was there for the taking, and Chubb fumbles the kickoff return. It's a completely different game to the point where not only does Cleveland cover, probably have a chance to win the game. And this kid's running, and he's looking at the big screen, and you can tell he's running, and he's looking at the big screen, and you're tired, and it's the tail end of a kickoff. It's like, if anybody's coming at you, they're coming for the ball. You shake your head. You just go, what? By the way, Patriots will be interesting to watch here in the next little bit. They have got a gauntlet coming up, and I don't know that this is the week. They're playing Baltimore, and Baltimore's playing terrific football. But it's funny, I can see the Patriots saying, oh, okay, everybody says we don't play anybody. We'll show them. I can kind of see that this week. But the gauntlet coming up, Ravens, Eagles on the road, Cowboys at home, at Houston, in Kansas City. Listen, the Patriots are winning the division. The Patriots are going to be there at the end of the year. But I do think this is a team, the defense is spectacular. I do think the offense is limited. They cannot run the football. And they're introducing each other into the huddle in terms of wide receivers. So, they haven't played anybody really. So let's see what comes up with them the rest of the way. But the one thing, they're on the fast track to play 2 games at home and go again.
Yeah, no, I agree. This week's interesting with Baltimore off the bye, but yeah, I agree that this may be the spot where New England says, hey, everyone's talking all this stuff about us. Well, they go out there and beat Baltimore and then possibly lose to Philadelphia. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me at all, but yeah. And I didn't even scratch the surface of complaining about Bill O'Brien, who keeps running the ball on first down against an Oakland pass defense that can't stop anybody. So,
well, his play calling for a couple of years has been a train wreck.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson's like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, and for the numbers he puts up, it still feels like he's being wasted by Bill O'Brien, which is just unbelievable.
Well, how about that AFC South, though? We did talk about that in the summer months. Throw a blanket over them. I think all 4 of them are flawed, but I think all 4 of them are good. And I think Tennessee with Tannehill now is, a danger as well. Tannehill's not going to set the world on fire, but Mariota couldn't get out of his own way. But those 4 teams, those are back alley fights.
And we will talk about the Texans and Jaguars here in a minute, but I do want to get some thoughts here earlier on in the week on Bang the Book Radio about this Thursday night game. San Francisco and Arizona. 49ers up to a 10-point favorite, just about market wide, at least in terms of the offshore numbers. Couple of stray 9.5 still out there on this one, but And I'll tell you what, there were a lot of people saying the same thing about San Francisco that they were saying about New England. Oh, they haven't played anybody. They've been catching some pretty decent teams in some bad spots. They caught a Carolina team that was in a great spot. Yeah, it was cross-country travel, but off a bye, healthy Christian McCaffrey, and they just took him to the woodshed.
They're getting better, Adam. If anything, they're getting better. They had the bye so early. You're like, they didn't want to buy. But there's a team, they're fast on both sides of the ball. The funny thing is, I think, when the day comes when something goes awry, I think Garoppolo's kind of the question mark there. Sometimes his decision-making is a little suspect, but, boy, they're just getting better with each passing week. Short week, you're going on the road. I would say this, the travel, when things even out, when you say, oh, short week and you got to go on the road, I think San Francisco was sitting at home after the game. They just went out, went out, had a couple of cocktails Monday. They're in the ice tub. Arizona coming home from New Orleans at the end of the day may be worse than what San Francisco's got to go through to get there for the game Thursday. So I'd say throw that out. But I'd probably lean to the over in the game. I think Kenyon Drake's going to be the running back for Arizona. I mean, I don't know who wants to be a running back for Arizona because if you are, you get hurt. But they bring Kenyon Drake in. Murray makes plays running around with his feet, so he buys time and he can make the occasional big play. Still a kid, and we know the San Francisco defense is ball hawking. I like the total over more than I do the side because I think it's a touch out of control.
Yeah, I agree with you about San Francisco getting better. And I mean, Kyle Shanahan's brilliant. I've talked about that so many times over here on this show. And what Robert Saleh is doing with that defense, very, very impressive as well. I want to take Arizona here, but I don't think I can do it because you've got first-year head coach in Cliff Kingsbury that, I mean, he was never great in college. I mean, everyone looks at him as an offensive genius, and maybe he is, and maybe some of these schemes will work in the NFL, but you got the first-year head coach, you got the first-year starting quarterback. Yeah, I think San Francisco is maybe in a spot where we can sell a little bit high. I just don't think that this spot necessarily sets up all that well to do it. And then, of course, the following week, they're on extra rest and extra prep. So maybe the following week's not a great time to go against San Francisco. But, at some point, somebody will have to trip this team up. It's not going to be on Halloween, I don't think.
Well, you kind of made my case for me, at least for me. When you say, with conviction, you say, I want to do something, but I can't. That means the numbers were kind of where it should be and stay away from it. I do think you'll see points in this game. The Niners just keep bringing fresh running backs at you. Deebo Samuel was invisible for a month, but now he's reappeared. But it's this defense every week. I mean, Adam, the turnovers they create in short fields, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And it's kind of interesting here as you look at the way things set up for San Francisco. They've got that game against the Cardinals this week. Then they get the Seahawks on November 11th. So they'll be plenty rested and ready to go for that one. And, of course, when we look at a team like Seattle, a lot of question marks with that team. We'll see how they do here with the Buccaneers. But a lot of people view them as an overachieving 6-2 team. Of course, hey, I mean, they let Atlanta back in the game last week, but that was a 24-0 game at halftime, so don't worry too much about that one. I think that's a really interesting game there in the NFC West as we take a little bit of a look ahead to Week 10.
Real quick, what I would just say, and we'll see if it gets to that point, but the monster game is December 8th, and that's San Francisco at New Orleans. And the way things are going, and we'll see what happens with the Packers. But, that is a game that could go a long way towards deciding who's hosting the NFC Championship game. But the Niners, as you said, Seattle at home in Arizona and Green Bay, 3-game homestand, then back-to-back at Baltimore and at New Orleans. So they got a salty schedule coming up. But that game down the road, it's kind of like you're pointing to, been saying for 4 weeks, can Penn State get through this gauntlet? And they beat Iowa and they beat Michigan. And they beat Michigan State, who had extra rest. And, okay, they got through the gauntlet. Watch them stub their toe against Minnesota. But you're pointing weeks ahead to say, can Penn State make it to the Ohio State game unbeaten? And you got the same thing here with the Niners. Can they make it to December 8th for that game with New Orleans? But that could end up being one of the games of the year.
Yeah, it definitely could. And I don't know if this will be one of the games of the year, but it should be a pretty good one here as, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The Jacksonville Jaguars are at home in London at Wembley Stadium
Yeah, there you go.
against the Houston Texans. This is the 7th time that Jacksonville will play over in London. They did lose last year to the Eagles 24-18. They also had that huge win in 2017, 44-7. Jacksonville is 3-3 straight up in their games across the pond. Houston, on the other hand, they've only been there once. They lost back in 2016. They actually lost in Mexico in 2016. They've never actually been over in London. So, we'll see what kind of equalizer that is here in this one. Houston down to a 1.5-point favorite, and I feel like the situational elements are kind of driving the early movement here.
Yeah, and I would just say this, and it's not that this black and white, but sometimes keep it simple, stupid. They played in week 2. Houston won the game 13-12. And I think when this AFC South, they know each other. I think all the defenses are pretty solid. J.J. Watt nicked up, but I would say the starting point for me is under 47.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. And, I kind of looked at this game and I sort of thought about this yesterday that, with how Houston is playing and with how Jacksonville has been kind of, uneven. They've been good. They've been bad. They've been good. They've been bad. Gardner Minshew's looked really good. Gardner Minshew has looked like, a rookie quarterback that, really only had the 1 year starting in FBS. They've been kind of all over the place, but I did feel like there was some home field advantage baked into this line for Jacksonville to begin with the number only coming out 2.5. Now that it's down to 1.5, it does look like Jacksonville is the sharper of the sides here. And yeah, J.J. Watt out for the year doesn't help Houston, but with what Deshaun Watson's been able to do, you would think Houston would get a little bit more respect, but maybe this winds up being, a game where sharp and public goes the same way because of Jacksonville's experience there playing in London and in particular at Wembley Stadium.
Well, I don't know that you can just draw this parallel, but I mean, sometimes you look at something and it looks foreign to the eye, and you say, "Oh, the number's telling me something." I mean, this number to me, it kind of resembles, Philly at Buffalo last week. That number was telling you the Eagles was the side. The Bills off to a great start. Eagles get pumped by Dallas. They're going on the road. That number was telling you that the sharp money was on the Eagles.
Yeah, and I talked about that on yesterday's show, and I talked about it last week on the show, and I still didn't pull the trigger on Philadelphia. And that's one that upsets me because, like you said, everything about that game, all the context clues in that line were telling you exactly who to take. And it kind of wound up playing out that way. As you said, the game was hanging in the balance right before halftime, but Philadelphia did put that one away in the second half. So,
well, and then I would say, and as a result, you'd say the Bills didn't play well 2 weeks. You say they played down to the level of competition with the Dolphins, although we saw the Dolphins with Fitzpatrick, are at least moderately competitive. Now the Bills feel like they haven't played well 2 weeks in a row. Now the number comes down against Washington. They're laying, and the sharp money's coming on Washington. That's down to 9.5. I would like to think that McDermott gets in these guys' ears and go, "All right, fellas, let's go. Let's get our act together here." And to me, I would think if you're gonna regroup and get that bounce in your step, this looks like a game to me. Buffalo should bounce back, and it should be Woodshed City against Washington, but the number's deflated because of what we just last watched.
Yeah, and something else that's interesting about that game is, I haven't seen any update about Case Keenum. Is Case Keenum going to play? I haven't seen anything about it.
If it's Haskins and the Bills don't win by 21, there should be an investigation.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see this number up and surprised to see it even kind of moving on Washington with the uncertainty of where Case Keenum is right now. Again, concussions are a very finicky thing. I know he had the extra time coming off the Thursday night game, but I don't know. I haven't seen any kind of update here as of yet as to the status of Case Keenum. So I'm surprised not just that the line is up, but that the line is moving down on Washington. again, would suggest that maybe somebody knows something about Washington and that Keenum's probably going to play. But again, a developing situation that we'll have to watch here throughout the course of the week. Brian, as you mentioned, I mean, as somebody from Buffalo, you ought to be used to the cold, but there's nothing cold about the Buffalo Sabres right now. Did lose last night to Arizona, but 9-2-2 to start the year, 20 points, the most in the NHL. And, hey, it's really just like we all thought with Buffalo, Colorado, and Edmonton being some of the best teams in the NHL so far.
Well, Colorado's not a shock. Edmonton and Buffalo are. Yeah, that game was sickening last night. Sabres were up 2-0. Hutton made a bunch of 10-bell saves, and then he let 2 garbage goals in, and they lost in a shootout. But, I mean, the difference is when you stub your toe and you're getting a point, which is, to me, is always, I hate when at least they got a point. But, when you're a team like Buffalo that hasn't been in the playoffs forever today, if you're losing but you're still getting a point, it makes a difference. But Eichel's on a mission. He's playing unbelievably, and they've got some depth, and their defense is a lot better. So, and I do envision a trade coming here shortly. They just got an injury to Scandella, who was the guy rumored to maybe be getting moved, but they've got Brandon Montour, who's finally back practicing, who, in their heart of hearts believe he could be their number one defenseman, and he hasn't even played to start the season. So they're getting they got a logjam on defense. I think in the not too distant future, I think they make a move, shipping out a quality defenseman to maybe get a little more scoring. But no, it's fun, bud. I mean, believe me, it's been I went through this last year. They were number 1 overall in the league at Thanksgiving and drove off a cliff. So that's always out there. You're like, well, but I think this Coach Kruger has them focused where bad things happen to them and they don't panic. And I think collectively, I think mentally they're a lot stronger team too.
Now, here's something I want to ask you about. This is something I kind of thought a little bit more about last year in both the NHL and the NBA, the streakiness of teams, because I'm a baseball guy. I'm a sabermetrics guy. I'm big on sample size. I need a big body of work to make a lot of determinations. And, it seems like maybe to some degree that just doesn't work as well in the NBA and the NHL, where you've got teams that'll win 3 in a row, lose 3 in a row, win 4 in a row, or win 7 out of 10, then kind of fall back a little bit. And as you look at the NHL here right now, we've got the Islanders that have won 7 in a row. Once again, Barry Trotz's doing an incredible job there.
Amazing
the Red
coach.
Wings that have lost 8 in a row, and nobody else in the league has won or lost 3 or more games in a row. So do you kind of read into that and look for some of those short-term streaks?
Oh, sure. I mean, now I'd be watching the Sabres closely. Their big mantra was, every team wants to do this, but they bounce back every time they've had a loss. They don't want to suffer back-to-back defeats. So we'll see how that all plays out. And they got a tiger by the tail in their next game when the Caps come to Buffalo, but that'll be intriguing. But absolutely streaks. But I would say more than that are scheduling things and historical things that repeat themselves over the course of every year. And I would just say this to you, and I'll give you Vegas as a perfect example. I think there have been real problems, and the quick answer from everybody around here is, Nate Schmidt's out. Okay, great. Yeah, I get it. Nate Schmidt's a terrific player. He's not Bobby Orr. Nate Schmidt's out. That doesn't mean 5 other guys are playing horribly in their own end because Nate Schmidt's out. Alex Tuck is coming back. So, yeah, things should get better for them, but I'm watching teams that just look faster than them. So now I want to see in the short term, they got absolutely steamed. But all the betting angles we talk about, Adam, you talk about a gray area where what do you do with these guys? Vegas goes on a 3-game road trip. They got killed by the Flyers. They pulled the goalie. Were lucky to beat Chicago, getting out of Dodge. So now the first game home from an Eastern road trip, they come home. We always say that's a tough game to play. They get murdered on Friday afternoon by Colorado. So Colorado goes home. Back-to-back nights. They go home. Anaheim's sitting there waiting for them. Anaheim beats Colorado. Now, Anaheim beats Colorado, playing in altitude, has to fly to Vegas. They just beat Colorado, who just murdered Vegas, and Anaheim comes to Vegas, has nothing in the tank. Vegas murders Colorado. Vegas' next 2 games, they've got, so everybody's like, Vegas is back. Well, wait a minute. They played a team that just played at altitude in the night before. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Vegas next game, they get Montreal in here. Montreal's playing the night before coming in here. The game after that, they play Winnipeg. Winnipeg is playing at San Jose the night before. So the two games, or this 3-game run, things are set up on a plate for Vegas, but that doesn't mean they fixed all their problems. Talk to me in 10 days, 2 weeks, when they got to play some back-to-back games or they're playing teams that are fresh. So that's the thing. You got to break down the schedule more than anything when you're handicapping hockey games.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can throw out a shameless plug here for the article I do every week at BangTheBook.com. Looking at those situational spots in the NHL does get posted on Sunday night for you to check out. And I completely agree with you. There are a lot of spots, and a lot of people will overreact to some of these performances, not realizing that, these teams are just in really, really good spots from time to time. What about tonight on the card, Brian? Anything you're seeing that kind of jumps out at you here for this evening?
Oh, the Tuesday night card. San Jose's a dog's breakfast right now. I mean, just a disaster. That was one of the best bets we were going to have in our lifetime, Adam, was last week, the game at Montreal, when San Jose and their captain Couture called out a couple of guys by name, said they were selfish, had no business being on the team. Then they had to go and play Montreal. It's like their season was on the line. The captain had to play big. The guys that got called out had to play big. Sure enough, they went up there as a dog and won. They've since lost 2 in a row. It was a tipping point that there's something really wrong, and this is a dysfunctional group. In that one instance, they put a Band-Aid on a head wound, and tonight they're playing Boston. San Jose's brutal on their own end. I think you could see over the total. The San Jose-Boston game. Boston's playing at a ridiculous level right now. Toronto's under a lot of pressure. It's early in the season. I mean, these people are just, they're down to the quick with their fingernails. I mean, they're going nuts up there.
Yeah, and I look at that San Jose and Boston game, and it's the 5th road game in 8 days for San Jose, so it's not a really good spot for them either, as they are finishing up a road trip. What about that? What about the last game of a road trip? Is that one where you typically look to fade a team?
In many instances, yeah. I mean, they're like, I want to get home. I just got to get out of there. Halfway through the game, their head's already on the plane. They're pictured, putting their feet back on the plane, having a beer, going home, and just get the hell out of Dodge. And then the first game home's a brutal one, especially after a long trip. This is a team that's in big trouble right now. But the one thing is, you get Carlson and Burns, and these guys can generate offense, but they're so much about generating offense. The odd man rushes and stuff they allow in their own end of the rink. It's ridiculous. They're completely out of sorts. And everybody, blame Martin Jones or Dell. It's not the goalie's fault. The quality of the shots these guys are facing. I mean, I think 6 is a bargain, to be honest with you. I think the way the Sharks are going, I think you could be looking at 6.5 totals there. Last game did go over the total. The previous 2 went under, but the Montreal game, that was the game they had to show up. And the Leafs game, they ran for the bus. They allowed 4 goals in the third period. So the way things are trending in the last 4 periods, they've allowed 9 goals. So I'll look over the total.
One other team I want to take a quick look at here in the NHL, then we'll spend a few minutes on the golf event here in China this week. The Dallas Stars. I mean, they were, the 5th favorite, or the 5th highest team to win the Stanley Cup here. And they've gotten off to a very sluggish start, only laying about $1.45, $1.50 tonight against a Minnesota team that's had its fair share of problems. Have we reached a buy low point on Dallas?
Well, the one thing, I'm trying to add it up here real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. They are 8-1 to the under in their last 9. All right. And Don Cherry brought up a great point on Hockey Night in Canada. I said all summer long, and got laughed at all summer long, that I thought the St. Louis Blues could have a real hard time this year. And I to the point where I said, I think the Blues may be hard-pressed to even make the playoffs. And the Stanley Cup hangover is a real thing. But now the Blues are 6-3-3. But they are Jekyll and Hyde. They came out of the gate early, then they hit the skids, then they put it back together. Now Tarasenko's hurt, and he's out 5 months. You're asking me about Dallas. It's the same thing, and this is the point Don Cherry made, that the Blues, and as it turns out, the Stars too, who had success in the playoffs are playing the style of hockey that was successful for them in the playoffs. You can't do that in the regular season. Anybody that doesn't believe that hockey changes and there's different segments of a season are fools. This is pond hockey at the moment. You get to January, things will tighten up a little bit. Then you get to the trade deadline. Now you're built with the team that you're going to go to war with, and then the coaches start implementing a playoff style they want to play. And the games start to be lower scoring in the back third of the season. But so now St. Louis and Dallas, they're trying to exact a physical toll on teams in playing like a physical brand of hockey that they played in the playoffs. Well, that works, Adam, in a series when you maybe lose game one, but you beat the hell out of a team and you turn around and play them in game two. And that's how the Blues won the Cup. They wore teams down in every series. But when pick a team, I don't know, when Carolina comes in and you try to beat the hell out of them, well, you may beat the hell out of them, but Carolina won the game. You know what I mean? And you don't get to reap the rewards of then they're beat up and you're going to beat them in the next game because you don't see them again. So maybe you fade the teams that play St. Louis and Dallas after they play them. But right now, you can't hit what you can't catch. It's pond hockey. So St. Louis and Dallas, in Dallas, obviously, they've got the great goaltender, but they can't shoot it in the ocean. So it's a stylistic thing for those two teams.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, Dallas struggled to score at the outset of last season, too. So, that wasn't necessarily coming off of the playoff hangover or anything, but just a team that maybe it takes them a little bit of time to get going. I guess we'll kind of wait and see, and we'll see what they're able to do here tonight.
Well, don't forget last year. Don't forget last year they were driving off a cliff, and I don't even remember who the hell the guy was. It was a team vice president or whoever the hell it was called Ben out. He called them out. Remember that? It was I do.
Yeah.
And then okay, he challenged them and basically was calling them lazy dogs. And it was like the movie Major League where they got the owner and they're tearing strips off the owner after every win. They were playing against that guy. It worked. But, again, was that putting a Band-Aid on a head wound?
I guess we'll find out, and I guess we'll find out here about the WGC-HSBC Champions event over in China. And look, you got to be pretty good to win this thing with the list of names that has won this. Xander Schauffele last year, Justin Rose 2 years ago, Matsuyama 3 years ago. Russell Knox kind of stands out, but that's a guy that, for some reason, he winds up playing pretty well in some big events. Bubba Watson, Dustin Johnson, Ian Poulter, Martin Keimer, Francesco Molinari. Mickelson's won this twice. Garcia's won it. So pretty good field and usually a pretty good winner here for this one over at Shishan Golf Club. Rory McIlroy is your favorite in the plus 550 range. Matsuyama, who finished second to Tiger last week at 12-1. Schauffele 14, Rose 16, Casey, Fleetwood, Finau, Stenson. Some of the other names here in this thing. This isn't as top heavy as you would expect it to be this time around, though, Brian.
I'm keeping this simple, Adam. I won't go bananas. I got a 3-pack for you, and that is Xander Schauffele, the defending champion, at 14-1. Played very well in Japan. Tiger's story, but we don't have to waste a lot of time, and that was remarkable. He turned the clock back 15 years, and he was just a rabbit. He's the greatest rabbit in the history of sports. Once he gets the lead, he ain't coming back to you. But I thought Schauffele played well enough on the weekend, so he's in good form, coming to a place where he got his biggest win to date. So Schauffele at 14-1 is a little low, but of the favorites, I'd look with him. I think the sharp money's telling you something here, and this has got to be sharp money. Shane Lowry, I want to throw a parade for the guy still. I had him. He was my top pick in the British Open, and he won at 80-1. He had a good weekend in Japan. He had a great final round. He's coming in good form. He probably spent 2 months drinking out of the claret jug, and a lot of guys disappear after winning majors. I think Lowry's on the bounce back. That final round says something to me. And the one that I think's a sneaky good price play, did you watch the golf at all over the weekend? Were you watching Tiger?
I caught Tiger's last few holes. That was it.
Okay. I watched all day Saturday, it's Friday, Saturday, but it was basically Saturday, Sunday over in Japan. But they played 29 holes on Saturday because of the rain. The second round was washed out. They never repaired. So the final group was Tiger, Gary Woodland and Keegan Bradley. And Bradley kind of just floated around on the early stages of Saturday, but he actually played really well at the end. But Keegan Bradley was there and played the final 20-odd holes with Tiger Woods and played well. And I think, he's surrounded by that. He was on the big stage. He fell back, but then he kind of put it back together and he played well. But he was under the spotlight in that final group. I think Keegan Bradley is a real strong, solid, under-the-radar play at 70-1 this week.
Yeah, and I'm even seeing 90 out there in some of the offshore markets. So a lot of different good looks here for this tournament. Again, a good field, not a great field. Missing guys like Johnson, like Day, like some of the other big names that are out there. But still a pretty solid field here for this. I believe it's the final event of the Asian Swing, correct?
I don't know. It's got to be winding down, I would think. Well, the President's Cup's right around the bend, right? That's got to be coming up any day.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about the President's Cup being the President's Cup. The timing of that is weird. To start the wraparound portion of the season and then go to the President's Cup, it's strange.
The President's Cup, it's a nothing burger to me. The good thing is, though, I do believe, you can. It's like anything. You watch them come out of the gate and you see who's in good form. I think there's good opportunities from a matchup perspective for the President's Cup, but it is. It's kind of the stepchild to the Ryder Cup. I mean, it's from a betting perspective, you play matchups, but I don't know. I'm not losing too much sleep over who's playing and who isn't until it gets there.
December 15th for the President's Cup, week off next week, and then the Mayakoba Golf Classic in Mexico on November 17th, where I'm sure we'll mention Pat Perez, an older guy that plays very well in some of those warmer destinations. And
we won't get into it, but there's the Bermuda Championship. So you get another event you brought up. It's a Stableford. I throw one guy out there 60-1. I take a shot with. When you look at the quality of the field that's there, Scott Stallings at 60-1, I think is a ridiculous price. Of the guys that are playing down there, I trust Scott Stallings a lot more than a lot of the guys who are playing in that tournament. But again, it's the quirky thing. It's the Stableford thing where you get points.
This is a stroke play event. I was mistaken the Barracuda Championship with the Bermuda Championship because.
Well, I like Stallings even more than.
Well, there you go.
I like him even more. No, I mean I'm just looking at the guys that are in the field, and this is a guy that can contend in main events, and I think if he gets into contention on the weekend and he's staring down some of these other guys, Scott Stallings, I can see kick a door down.
That obviously goes without saying, but it's an island area, so you may have wins. So keep in mind, you probably want to find some good win players out there for the Bermuda Championship as well. Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. How can people find those two shows, Brian?
Well, Adam, it's a crazy week. In fact, as soon as we get off the hopper here, I get back to work. I'm working on the Breeders' Cup, which is coming up this weekend. Really excited about that. We'll be doing a Breeders' Cup seminar Friday night, 6 p.m., Sunset Station. If anybody's coming to town, and you're looking, we've had really good success dishing out some long shots. Richie Eng, Hank Goldberg, Dave Valeno, the track fan, and myself, Chuck Esposito, 6 p.m. Sunset Station if you're in town. And the radio shows, noon to 2 weekdays. Sportsbook Radio, the top sportsbook directors and handicappers. That's noon to 1 to 2 p.m. Vegas Hockey Hotline. Great hockey guests. We had Eddie Olczyk on last week, did a little Breeders' Cup chat with him and hockey. If you're a hockey fan, think you really like the hockey show, that's 1 to 2 p.m. You can catch the shows at kshp.com. There's the listen live function there, and the shows are archived at sportsbookradio.com. We do videos for our friends at Bang the Book. You can follow me on Twitter, Brian Blessing. I probably left something out, but that's enough.
No, yeah, we should do. I'm sure you'll have a Breeders' Cup video this week, and if we can, we'll try and do a quick Breeders' Cup segment on Friday morning here this week for our listeners out there. So hopefully we can get a chance to do that. If not, you can check out my preview over at bangthebook.com. I'll have one of those this week. And, of course, check out Brian's video as well. At Brian Blessing on Twitter, as he said. Brian, appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much for joining me.
We'll try to do the thing Friday, but right now I'll just say in the turf, I'm building my whole day around a couple of horses and pick threes and pick fours. In the turf, two trainers that have a history of winning this event, Aidan O'Brien and Charles Appleby. Anthony Van Dyck is Aidan O'Brien's horse, and the one to watch out for is Old Persian, and that's in the Breeders' Cup turf. But we'll try to do something on Friday. But love the Breeders' Cup. I'm sorry, but I know you got to get the Ralph here. The one thing I will tell you, when you're trying to find value, that's why I love this weekend. The best jockeys and the best horses in the world are at Santa Anita. You know what that means? That means there are all kinds of opportunities at all the other tracks because the best jockeys in the jockey colony have hit the road, and you can sit there and find value at all the other tracks because the best jockeys aren't there. I love this weekend.
All right, sounds good. Like we said, we'll try to talk about that here on Friday. Once again, with Brian Blessing, at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Brian, appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you again later on in the week.
All right, pal. Adam, have a good day.